Exactly. The law, like Doug said, eventually it probably will get done. But when it's the least costly to everyone.
I think they're worried about retro.
I don't know. They may be. I mean, you got to be kidding me. We have a sporting goods store down here by the name of Academy. They're all across the Southwest and everything. Pretty good-sized corporation. I've got a buddy, a young man that I worked with in the past. He's at AAA with the Royals, and he was home on the maternity leave this past weekend, and I had a former player who passed away. His parents wanted an autographed ball for kind of the room they were building for him. So I dropped by, I contacted the young man first to see if he'd do it, and he said sure. So I stopped by Academy to pick up an MLB ball. $24.99.
What?
I mean, it's it's in a little plastic case, but $24.99 is list price on that.
Geez, no wonder those crazy people dive after them in the stadium now.
I mean, I know when I was buying them wholesale 20 years ago, they were, $6-7 a piece maybe. But it's all the reason they're so expensive is because of the MLB licensing on them. It's like, when we were growing up, what was every little league team named? They were named after a big league team.
Yep.
How many major league teams do you see on little league uniforms anymore?
Not a lot of them, because they don't want to pay for
because 30 years ago they came after all the organizations and said, we want our piece. I mean, it's all greed.
I mean, David, you go to Fanatics or MLB.com shop, and a jersey is $149.99 for a player.
That's one that's not used. You get a game jersey, an authentic game jersey, and it's $2.99.
Well, I think it's even more. I think it's even more expensive than that, depending on the player.
Well, it might be. And it depends on the name that's on the back too.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, but how much does it cost to make one of those stupid uniforms?
Well, I know if you go to one of those Chinese sites and buy one, you can get them for $20, and they're making money off of them too.
Well, I even know if you call Majestic or Rawlings or whoever's making the uniform this year, you can buy an entire uniform probably for $100.
Well, speaking of making calls, I'm sure, Mark, you can monitor this better than me, but I'm sure there are a couple of callers out there who want to ask Mr. Clyde a couple of questions. So why don't we go to that right now?
We have been having some tough time with the whole Facebook audio thing and stuff like that. So I'm going to give it a try to bring somebody on and see if they can ask a question. I'm going to try and see if we can bring one of our guests on over here. I'm going to see if we can get Jim Halpin on. So let's just see what we can do over here, Jim, if we can tap you and bring you on board or something like that. Of course, technology is not working.
Technology's great when it works, and we won't discuss it in front of young ones when it doesn't.
You can't say what you're thinking about it in front of them. So
that's right. I'll be honest with you. If it wasn't for OtterBox, and I don't mean to give them a free plug, my iPhone would be in pieces. I get so frustrated at times, I want to just chunk it.
Yeah, I'd like to skip it across the pond, so as they say, but that ain't going to happen because we're so addicted to these things right now. We can't go anywhere without them. It's ridiculous.
That's $1,100 to replace it.
Exactly. So yeah, we're technology-wise, we can't bring anybody on, but I mean, between Doug and myself, we got a plethora of questions. I mean, I'm curious to hear from you to compare and contrast playing under Whitey and playing under Billy, two guys who are known to be great managers, but I would say almost 180 degrees different in personality.
At least 180 degrees different. I mean, Whitey was the former farm director of the New York Mets. He was the one responsible for building the Miracle Mets in '69. Then he came over to be manager of the Rangers, and would have been an excellent decision. Obviously, when they came to Texas, they hired Ted Williams, or maybe he was already manager, and they left him on hoping he'd attract people, and he didn't. But Whitey was great with young players, and Billy hated young players.
I think you might be understating how much Billy hated young players.
and I got caught in the perfect storm in 1974. 1973, we're one of the worst teams in baseball again. We're either going to have the first or second pick in the draft again. Nobody expected us to go from worst to first, which we almost did. Up until the last month of the season, we were right in the thick of it. But Billy didn't want me there to start the season. And so that was fine. I want to pitch. So let me go start learning my craft. Well, the front office had no idea that if they were going to be able to attract fans to the stands. So they wanted me there because I was a proven commodity that at that point I could put butts in the stands. And that's how that 30-day scenario occurred. I won my first 3 starts in 74. And you can ask Mark, what's it like to try to pitch in the big leagues after 30 days and not even being allowed to throw a bullpen? It wasn't just getting to pitch in a game. It was not even getting an opportunity to. If I bounced a curveball, and back then the bullpen in Arlington was on the field, if one got away, the phone rang, sit him down. So I'd want to throw before the game. Oh, no, you can't throw before the game. We might need you tonight. Then I'd call down the 7th, 8th inning to throw. Sometimes they'd call back. Sometimes they wouldn't. When they did call back, most of the time it was no. Every now and then it was yes. And the first time a curveball got away from me, well, boom. So.
Who was Billy's pitching coach back then? Was Art Fowler with him at that point, or was he would have somebody else?
That's who carried the title.
Yeah, Billy was kind of his own pitching coach, right?
I wouldn't say that either, but the instruction I received from Art Fowler in his good old North Carolina twang was, "I'll kiss your ass if you throw it over home plate and they hit it."
That's a great way to learn a craft.
Yeah.
From what I was told,
two of the worst things that probably happened were being drafted by the Rangers and then the firing of Whitey. Because up until when Nolan took the ball club over, they still hadn't developed any pitching.
From what I was told, Art Fowler's qualification for being pitching coach was that he was Billy's drinking buddy.
Well, that was the case. Absolutely. That was the case.
David, you've told me before that just because you played professionally, that doesn't necessarily make you, just because you're a major league pitcher or you're a former major league pitcher, doesn't mean you can coach baseball or teach pitching.
No, you can't, because, what came to me so very naturally, it took me a while to figure out how do I translate this to a young boy who wants to try to learn to pitch, doesn't really have the great arm, but still wants to learn to pitch. And it took me a little bit of time on how to figure out, okay, how do I communicate this to this young man? How do I get him to do what I did naturally? And that's a very difficult thing to do. Sometimes I'm successful, sometimes I'm not.
Well, in our world, in our book, you're a success. I know you've joked about that plenty of times, that, you've been called, there's a famous New York Times story called The Mismatched Career of David Clyde. And, you've handled, your legacy is, I think, when people point to an investment, and I hate to reduce it to dollars and cents, but when
That's
people
what it is.
point pitching talent, they always say, well, we hope, he doesn't turn out to be like another David Clyde with arm trouble. But you said that, so many people were counting on you. It's not that you were a failure. You just had a lack of success.
That's a nice way to put it. What I tell people is I am the poster child of how you do not handle young talent. And like I tell them also in the same sentence, I said, if you ever see Strasburg or Harper and they want to piss and moan about not going straight to the big leagues, give them this phone number right here and tell them to call me, and I'll tell them why. Because I am the reason why. They learn their lessons. That's the good. I mean, it'll probably happen again. The perfect storm will occur again. But up to this point, whenever I've heard of another young player coming along, I do hear them say, we're not going to do to him like we did to David Clyde. And that makes me feel very good that those things came out of my career. Some good things came out of my career.
Yep. And a lot of good
David.
Go ahead.
David, I was gonna ask you if someone came to you from Major League Baseball and said, "Hey, what would you do to change pitching today? Because right now we can't figure it out. We have no idea what we're doing, and we can't figure it out. What would you do to fix what's going wrong with Major League pitching right now? Because right now it seems like we're in a transitionary stage where they don't know if starting pitchers exist anymore. Everyone's a specialist like doctors. I mean, what would David Clyde do to fix it?
I would throw more. I would get away from not all the weight training, but a lot of it. I think in some instances we've made the muscles way too strong for the body. Ligaments and tendons are finite. They can only stretch so much before they break. Muscle, we can add mass. We can continue to add mass. We continue to add mass to a certain point. At some point, something's got to break. The other thing is, I'd train them in the minor leagues like we're going to pitch them in the big leagues. This tandem pitching, 4 innings one guy, 5 innings another, for 3 or 4 years, they're in the minors. They're limited on their pitch count, 80, 85 pitches. Don't get me wrong, the arm's valuable and pitch counts to some extent are important. But Nolan Ryan averaged 150 pitches for 28 years because he took care of himself. But all of a sudden we get to the big leagues. Now they want us to pitch 200 innings and they want us to go deep in the game. And for the last 5 years, we haven't trained for that. So, it's a proven fact. The Rangers became ultra successful when Nolan Ryan ran their pitching. The Astros were pretty successful at one point when Larry Dierker was their manager because he believed in his starting pitching. I think in some instances we outthink ourselves. And so I'd like to see.
This again, a ham-handed segue, but one of the things I think about a lot, and that's why, this is the signature show, this podcast program of our radio network. I think about how a man who is a former player, an all-star, can receive the coveted Jackie Robinson Lifetime Achievement Award from the Negro League Museum in Kansas City. And in 2016, he references a quote from Muhammad Ali, and he says, "Success is what you achieve, but your significance is what you leave." Now, how do you accept an award named to honor arguably one of the greatest social justice pioneers in this country, and then screw men like David Clyde? It's just a head scratcher that I just don't get. And I will admit, I didn't know that.
It just kind of